All right. Ready to dive into one of history's biggest mysteries.
Always up for a challenge.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to enigmas like the Ark of the Covenant.
You know, it's more than just an old biblical story. It's fascinating, all the stuff you sent over about this thing. This was a real object. People believed it held, like, immense power.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking divine power, the kind that could topple city walls and, maybe even strike down the unwary.
Well, it is fascinating how an object, any object really, can become a symbol powerful enough to shape a whole nation's identity.
Right.
And that's what the Ark was for the Israelites.
Okay, so before we get to the, Raiders of the Lost Ark part of all this, let's start at the beginning. What was this Ark? Like, really, what did it look like?
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
A chest. Meticulously crafted, acacia wood overlaid with pure gold.
Fancy.
But not just any chest. It had rings for carrying poles. And on top, 2 golden cherubim, wings outstretched over a solid gold lid. They called it the mercy seat.
Acacia wood and gold. That wasn't just, a random choice.
Oh, absolutely not. Acacia wood was considered sacred, durable, symbolizing incorruptibility. And gold, well, gold represented purity and divinity. Every little detail, every part of the Ark's construction was deliberate, imbued with symbolic meaning.
So, not just a fancy container, this was designed to be a statement piece.
Exactly.
Literally embodying their beliefs.
And what did the sacred container hold? The 10 Commandments, the foundation of the Israelite covenant with God.
Oh.
But it wasn't just about preserving those tablets. The Ark was the dwelling place of God's presence, a conduit to the divine.
Hold on, wait. The dwelling place of God's presence. That's a pretty bold claim.
It is.
What led them to believe that?
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. First, you have the biblical account of Moses receiving instructions from God on Mount Sinai to build the Ark. Then there's the description of this cloud, the Shekinah, descending upon the Ark, symbolizing God's presence. And this belief, it shaped their whole understanding of their relationship with God. You see, he wasn't some far-off deity. He was right there with them in, a tangible form.
Whoa, that's powerful. You can see why they would attribute, victories in battle or miracles to the Ark being there. It must have been a source of such strength and unity.
Oh, it was, but also a source of fear. There were very strict rules about who could touch the Ark,
right,
how it should be transported, even how to approach it, the consequences for disrespecting those rules, severe. Remember Uzzah reached out to steady the Ark when it was jostled and, struck down.
Oh, yeah.
That story, it served as a stark warning. This wasn't just some ornate box. It was a sacred object imbued with divine power.
Yeah, that's not a story you forget easily. It seems like the Israelites walked this tightrope between reverence and fear when it came to the Ark.
They did. It represented both their greatest blessing and their deepest responsibility, which I think makes its disappearance from history even more intriguing.
Okay, so we've got this incredibly important, powerful, and frankly kind of terrifying Ark at the center of Israelite history, and then poof. It just vanishes.
Precisely. The last documented appearance of the Ark is in Solomon's temple.
Okay.
In the Holy of Holies, the most sacred space. And then, after the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in 586 BCE, it's as if it just ceased to exist.
That's where the real mystery starts. For something so significant, you'd think there'd be more clues, more definitive accounts of what happened to it.
You would think so.
Mm-hmm.
And that lack of solid evidence, well, that's what has fueled centuries of speculation, debate.
Yeah.
Was it captured by the Babylonians as spoils of war, hidden away by the Israelites before their city fell? Or did something else entirely happen? These questions have captivated historians, archaeologists, treasure hunters for generations.
So let's unpack those possibilities. What are some of the leading theories about what happened to the Ark?
Well, the sources you sent over, they mentioned a few interesting theories.
Okay.
Each with its own set of supporters and, of course, detractors. Some believe the Ark is hidden right there in Jerusalem.
Really?
Maybe beneath the Temple Mount.
That makes sense. If they wanted to keep it safe from invaders, what better place than the most sacred site in their city?
Exactly. And then you have the theory that the Ark was smuggled out of Jerusalem, taken south to Ethiopia.
Wait, Ethiopia? That seems like a pretty big leap. What's the connection there?
Yeah, it's rooted in Ethiopian tradition, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church.
Okay.
They claim that the Ark was brought to Axum, their ancient capital, by Menelik I.
Okay.
Now, he was believed to be the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. So you see the connection back to Jerusalem.
Ugh, so a bit of royal intrigue thrown into the mix. And they think the Ark is still in Ethiopia. Like today.
That's the claim. It's housed in the Chapel of the Tablet at the Church of St. Mary of Zion in Axum, guarded by a single monk who dedicated his life to protecting the Ark. He's never allowed to leave the church grounds,
Wow.
and no one else is allowed to see it.
Wow. Talk about a closely guarded secret. But I mean, that also means there's no way to verify that, right? No one can just go in there and say, hey, can I take a peek at that Ark?
Nope, not exactly. It's a matter of faith for the Ethiopian Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
Some argue that the secrecy surrounding it, that just adds to its mystique and power.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got these two theories. One says it's hidden in the heart of Jerusalem. The other says it was taken far away to Ethiopia. But both involve keeping it safe, just in very different ways.
Yeah, it really shows the range of possibilities, doesn't it? And then, of course, there's the theory that, well, the Ark wasn't intentionally hidden at all. What if it was lost or destroyed during the, chaos of the Babylonian invasion?
Oh, so like accidental destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a fire ripped through the temple, or it got buried under rubble during the siege, or looted and lost?
Exactly. If the Babylonians did capture it, it could have been melted down, for the gold, or broken apart, scattered. Or who knows, maybe it met a more mundane end, lost in the desert on that long journey back to Babylon.
Yeah, it's kind of a sobering thought, isn't it?
It is.
This object that was so central to their faith, their identity, could just be wiped from existence, just like that.
It raises questions about, the nature of sacred objects, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If the Ark was truly a conduit to God's presence, does its physical form even matter? Or is the power, the significance, something that transcends its material existence?
Whoa, those are some pretty deep theological questions.
Yeah.
But they also remind us that this is more than just a historical mystery. The Ark is a symbol, an idea that even if it's physically gone, it still resonates with people.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the biggest question. If we were to actually search for the Ark today, where would we even begin?
Well, we've talked about Jerusalem, Ethiopia, and of course the possibility that it's simply gone.
Right.
Each option has its own set of challenges. Jerusalem, with all the political and religious sensitivities, that would be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
Ethiopia, with its guarded traditions, that might be impossible to access. And if it was destroyed, well, that's the ultimate dead end.
It's like we're facing a puzzle, but most of the pieces are missing.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a clue we're overlooking.
Right.
A piece of information that could point us in the right direction.
Yeah.
The sources you sent did mention another possibility.
Okay.
The prophet Jeremiah.
Oh, right. Jeremiah, the quote-unquote weeping prophet.
Yeah, known for his warnings, of impending doom,
Mm-hmm.
his calls for repentance. He was a pretty prominent figure in Jerusalem during that Babylonian invasion.
And some people believe he might have been involved in the Ark disappearing.
There's a theory that Jeremiah, foreseeing the destruction of Jerusalem, took steps to protect the Ark. Maybe he hid it, hoping to preserve it for a future restoration.
So instead of it being taken or destroyed, it was hidden by one of their own.
Right.
Someone who understood how important it was and wanted to keep it safe.
Exactly.
That adds a whole new layer to this story.
It does.
Are there any clues as to where he might have hidden it?
Unfortunately, no. Not really. Some speculate he might have chosen a cave near the Dead Sea, drawing a parallel to the Dead Sea Scrolls, hidden away centuries later. Others suggest maybe somewhere in the Judean wilderness, that vast, unforgiving landscape where he could stay lost for, centuries.
So we're back to square one. Vast, challenging landscape to search and no real starting point. But hey, we are talking about one of the most sought-after artifacts in history.
And sometimes, the most significant discoveries happen when we least expect them.
Yeah.
A chance find, a new way of interpreting an old text, even a shift in how we understand the past.
Right.
That could be the key to unlocking the Ark's secrets.
So there's still hope.
Oh, absolutely.
But even if we never actually find the Ark, I think the search itself is part of what makes this whole thing so compelling. It makes us think about faith, about history, about the power of belief.
Exactly. And it reminds us that some mysteries are meant to endure, to challenge our assumptions, to spark our imaginations.
Speaking of enduring mysteries, let's go back to the last known sighting of the Ark in Solomon's Temple. It was placed in the Holy of Holies.
Right.
A space so sacred that only the high priest could enter, and even then, only once a year.
That's right. The Holy of Holies was seen as the most sacred space in the entire temple. That's where the Ark was kept and where the high priest would enter on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, to perform rituals of purification and to ask forgiveness for the sins of all the people.
So it wasn't just a symbol of God's presence. It was also like intrinsically linked to atonement and forgiveness.
Exactly.
Which adds another layer of meaning to it vanishing, doesn't it?
It does. It makes you wonder what the loss of the ark meant to them.
Yeah.
Did they believe they lost God's favor?
Right.
Did they feel abandoned? Or did they find new ways to connect with their faith, even without this, physical object?
That's fascinating. How such a big loss might have shaped their whole belief system and the way they practiced their faith. Did it cause a crisis, or did it, spark some kind of spiritual evolution?
That's something historians and theologians are still debating.
Really?
It shows the lasting impact of the ark, even though it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Its story still shapes our understanding of faith, of history, and, that basic human desire to find meaning.
That's a good point. But before we get too philosophical, let's bring it back down to earth. If we were to follow the trail of the ark today, who would we be looking for? Who might have had access to it or knew where it was?
That's a great question. We'd have to consider a lot of different people. Priests, temple officials, the people in charge of its care and protection. We'd have the prophets like Jeremiah, who might have had visions or insights into what happened to it. And of course, the kings, the rulers,
Right.
the folks with both political and religious power.
It sounds like we'd need a whole team. Historians, archaeologists, theologians, maybe even a few code breakers to figure out any ancient clues.
Exactly. It would take a multidisciplinary approach to untangle this mystery, pulling together expertise from all these different fields to, put the pieces of the past back together.
And who knows? Maybe somewhere out there, in an archive, a tomb, some forgotten corner of the world, there's a clue just waiting to be found.
Yeah.
A clue that could finally lead us to the Ark.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
To think that after centuries of speculation, we might finally solve one of history's greatest mysteries.
It's a pretty exciting thought. But even if the Ark stays hidden, I think the journey itself is worth it.
Oh, I agree.
It's the exploration, the pursuit of knowledge, that willingness to wrestle with the unknown that really makes us understand the world better.
It's funny, we've been talking about this ark like it's just this historical thing.
Yeah.
But, it's had a huge impact on pop culture, too. Remember Raiders of the Lost Ark? That was a pretty thrilling, if slightly embellished take on the whole search for this lost treasure.
Oh, for sure. The Ark has captured imaginations for centuries. Think about all the stories, films, works of art.
Yeah.
It's a real testament to its power, as this symbol of mystery,
Yeah.
of the unknown.
And it's interesting how a lot of those depictions focus on, the ark's power.
Yeah.
Even its danger. In Raiders, when those guys looked into the ark, let's just say it didn't end so well for them.
Right. It brings up that question you mentioned before. If we found the Ark today, would we even be able to handle it? Would we be worthy? Or would we be risking some kind of, biblical meltdown? Right. Because, those sources describe some pretty intense consequences for people who, treated the Ark wrong or approached it the wrong way. It wasn't just, physical harm either. It was about spiritual purity, ritual preparation, that whole thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Some scholars think the ark's power was actually connected to doing these specific rituals, following certain practices. Only the Levites, that one tribe of Israel, were allowed to carry it. And even they had to use those poles through the rings, never touching it directly.
Wow.
It seems like they understood that this wasn't just some pretty box.
Yeah.
It demanded a different level of, reverence,
Yeah.
and caution.
So maybe there's some wisdom in just leaving it alone. If it's been hidden for all these centuries, maybe there's a good reason for that. Maybe it's meant to stay a mystery.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Maybe the ark's real power comes from it being absent, It inspires us to keep searching, to keep questioning, to go deeper into our own beliefs.
The Ark itself is this challenge. It makes us face how much we don't understand. It makes us deal with, the mysteries of faith and history.
And it reminds us that some things, no matter how hard we try, might just always be beyond our reach.
But even if we never find it, the actual Ark, its story still teaches us so much about faith, about the importance of history, about how fascinated we are with what we don't know.
It makes us think about the connection between the physical and the spiritual, right? What we can touch and what we can't. It reminds us that sometimes the most powerful things are the ones we can't see or fully understand.
So to our listener, as we wrap up our deep dive into the mystery of the Ark of the Covenant, What's stuck with you the most? What questions are still swirling around in your mind? Do you believe the Ark is still out there, waiting to be found? Or is its real power in the questions it raises, the stories it inspires, and that constant human search for meaning that it represents? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.